everyone, it's Michelle Lupton here, and I am super duper excited to be the guest designer for Wow Embossing this month. So I'm going to show you how I made this card. I'm going to remake it slightly different this time, but as you can see, I'm going to be using some Fab Foilers, some gold foil, and also the Lotsahearts stencil. So I'm starting off with these Fab Foilers. This is the Love and Hugs set. And I'm just pulling out some circle dies. These are infinity dies from Hero Arts because I want to cut the sentiment, but also to cut a border around it as well. So I'm going to be using my Hero Arts compact cutter here to cut these with this small die, and I've just placed the die around this sentiment. And the fabulous thing about these is you can foil them. So they're printed with toner. So all I'm going to do is take some of this gold foil. So this is the Fab Foil from Wow Embossing, and I'm just taking two pieces. I've actually got the sentiment there on the right, you can see, just next to the die, but I've also got a panel of the solid panels, the Fab Foilers solid panels, which is just a complete sheet of toner paper basically, and so I'm going to be able to cover that entire piece with some gold foil, and it's super easy to do. I've got my mini mink machine here and I've just heated it up, and I usually use setting number 3, generally works for me. And I just run that through in a little carrier sheet. You can just use a piece of folded paper if you like, but I've got this plastic carrier sheet. And while that's running through, I'm just cutting my second piece of foil just to fit over that sentiment on the circle that I've already cut out. Alright, so my first piece is all done, that's ready to go, and I'll actually have plenty left over, so I'm going to pop that back into the same packet as it came from, so next time I want to use something that I've already got a little bit of gold foiling already done. Alright, so while my sentiment's running through, I'm just taking both of the dies that I've got, so the smaller of the two dies is what I use to cut out the sentiment, but I pulled out the next largest die at the same time. All right, I'm just turning off my mink and getting that out of my way. And anyway, I've lined up those two circle dies so there's an even border all the way around. And I'm going to just put that again through my little compact cutter, my little mini die cutting machine, and that will cut a little gold border. So it's already foiled for me, and you can see when I turn that over, my little gold piece there. So I've got my sentiment ready to go. The sentiment's foiled, the border is foiled. I'm going to set that aside and I'll come back to that later on. All right, so now I'm moving on to my stenciling. So I've got my a piece of white cardstock here, and I'm just taping down this Lotsahearts stencil with some masking tape, and I've got a rainbow of Distress Oxide inks, and I'm going to list the colours in the description down below. And I started with saltwater taffy, but I actually changed my mind. I decided that I wanted something a little bit more red and less pink, so I changed over to abandoned coral, which I think was the colour that I used on my original card. I'm not entirely sure because it was actually a couple of weeks ago that I made that original card, but I think it was probably abandoned coral that I used. All right, so now I'm using some spiced marmalade. These are my go-to colours of Distress Oxide inks when I'm doing a rainbow, and I just go backwards and forwards over the sort of joins between the colours so I get a lovely blend between them. Alright, so now I'm moving on to squeezed lemonade, and you can see I'm using my inkstand there to hold my ink pad in place as I'm picking up the colour with my Hero Arts blending brushes, and that inkstand holds it nicely in place and it doesn't sort of run all over your workstation. Alright, so moving on, and the next colour I have here is Twisted Citron, which is a really bright citrusy green, nice lime green. And then my next colour, I actually debated about this one, but I eventually came to this conclusion, which is the Broken China, which is one of the older distress colours. And the last colour I added is Wilted Violet. So I'm just adding that there. I always have to be a bit careful with Wilted Violet because I tend to be heavy-handed with it. I don't know if it's my ink pad is particularly juicy but anyway, I have to be careful with it. All right, so I'm just going to remove my stencil and my masking tape and just set that aside for the time being while I clean up. So I'm just going to get a baby wipe. I'm going to clean up my workstation, so get rid of any ink that's on there, and just quickly clean off my stencil because I am going to use the stencil again. So I need to make sure, first of all, it doesn't have any ink on it, but I also need to make sure that my inked panel is nice and dry. So I heat set it so to make sure that that ink was nice and dry, and then I'm going over it with a powder tool. So that powder tool is from the Rabbit Hole Designs. All right, so I'm just lining up my stencil again, but you can see I've actually overlapped the hearts. So the hearts are not in the same place as they were originally, because what I'm doing now is I'm adding some embossing ink. So I'm using my Wow embossing pad here, and I'm just pushing it really heavy application of this embossing ink onto that stencil. So pushing it through so it'll come through. And you can't see it now, but there is actually embossing ink there. And I've actually got some embossing glitter. This embossing glitter is called Pure Platinum. And it's really gorgeous because it's got these platinum and gold, pale gold sparkles to it. But it's quite translucent. So, and that's what the look I was going for, because what I wanted is for the rainbow of hearts that I've inked up on the first layer to actually shine through the glittery platinum hearts that I'm now embossing over the top. So yeah, I wanted them to be slightly offset. All right, so I'm just funneling my embossing powder back into the little tub. And now I'm going to get out my heat tool and melt this embossing glitter, and you'll end up with just the most amazing shine. And it doesn't look that spectacular at the moment, but when I show you up close and the shine that you get when you tilt it in the light, just look at this. Oh, look at that. Oh, the shine that you get from the embossing powder and also from the glitter within that embossing powder is just gorgeous. All right, so I'm almost finished here. So all I need to do is to add my little circular die cut sentiment, and then I'm going to use some liquid glue to add my little gold foiled circle die cut around the edge as a little border. And once I've got that in place, I'm just using some liquid glue. This is art glitter glue. And I can get a really nice fine line with that because, of course, my border is only very fine. I don't want glue splodging out underneath. And I'll just push that down, make sure it's right in place, and there I am done. So I'm just going to show you both cards side by side. You can see they're very, very similar to each other, but just a different sentiment in the middle. So thank you very much for watching today, and thank you very much for Wow Embossing for having me as their guest this month. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.